Hello, folks. Welcome to Business Spotlight. You know, most business owners build a company from scratch, but my next guest liked the place where she was working so much, she bought it. She's all about growing other people's businesses, especially in the accounting sector. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Rhiannon Glacken. Rhiannon, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming on. Tell us the story, because you did end up buying the company where you were working, right? Tell us the story about how you got started with your business.
You're going to have to stretch your imagination a little bit now to imagine a bright-eyed, less cynical 21-year-old version of me starting a job as a telemarketer. Selling accountancy services to businesses, all the usual sort of cheerful kind of smile while you dial, be super enthusiastic. You know, I sort of joke now that I used to try to practice resting pitch face. That was me then. And fast forward a number of years, I'd done various roles within the business. I'd kind of found myself and found my feet in customer service. So I was the go-between between the accountancy clients and between the telemarketing team. Unfortunately, under circumstances that were quite sad and quite difficult and stressful for all concerned, I found myself in a position where I very suddenly and without really much preparation ended up taking over the business. That was something that was a little bit of a shock to the system, shall we say, a bit of a baptism of fire.
So suddenly you find yourself running this company. I'm sure it's not all been straightforward for you. What have been the biggest challenges that you've faced, Rhiannon, since you took over, and have you grappled them, and what have you learned from those lessons?
I have gone from essentially being an employee with a title to suddenly being the person for whom the buck stops. So everything now rests on my shoulders. If I had, I guess, the most important kinds of support, I had emotional support, I had moral support, I had willing pairs of hands ready to do things. What I didn't have was mentorship. I didn't have somebody to kind of handhold me through the process and guide me and sort of give me a steer on what it was I needed to do. So I explored different options for that, as you would. I reached out to different agencies. I spoke to one that had a great conversation and it was going really well, right up until the point they asked me how long the business had been going. And as soon as I said that it had been going for more than 2 years, that was the end of that conversation because of the way they were funded. So then I reached out to another agency and they said, yeah, great, we can pair you up with a mentor. Oh, fantastic. That's music to my ears, just what I need. And then I found out that the mentor was sort of a bloke that was training in how to be a business mentor. And I thought, well, that's not really what I need either. We met with a consultant as well, you know, a sort of fancy business consultant, and they wanted me to sign up to a fairly long-term contract with quite a substantial investment. And at the point that I'd become a client and I had my first meeting with them as a client, I would eventually find out what it was they were going to do. I kind of had a realization from all of these conversations that what I needed was bespoke advice. I needed somebody to actually look at the numbers, look at the figures within the business and tell me, what do those data points tell us we need to do? That didn't seem to be forthcoming from anyone that I'd contacted so far. It was all about people wanting to sort of plonk a framework onto my business for me to follow with their guidance. And what I wanted was bespoke. Just so happens that we knew some accountancy firms that were offering bespoke advice and guidance to their clients, albeit people perhaps we thought were slightly larger than we were at the time. Turns out not the case. That advice can actually be available to businesses of different sizes. And so we got unstuck pretty quickly at the point that we started getting ourselves bespoke, tailored advice that was actually directly relevant to what we did, rather than finding where we might be somewhere along somebody else's framework.
You're all about building accountancy practices and helping accountancy practices to grow. What strategies work well, though, for you in terms of growing your business?
We're a little bit different with the way that we do things. So we just get into conversations with people. It's what we do. I find that if you can go and draw enough attention to yourself, which is what marketers do, and get into conversations with people, the rest just follows. So, you know, we've done trade exhibitions where myself and a bunch of colleagues have been stood dressed as doctors with stethoscopes and clipboards running a 1-minute marketing surgery, and things like that. And the purpose is obviously just to get people into conversation. And when you can actually talk to people, see the whites of each other's eyes, demonstrate that you actually know a little bit of what you're talking about, the rest just kind of follows.
Tell me about innovation and creativity in your business, Rhiannon.
We are always trying to do things a little bit differently. And at the moment, I'm actually working on something that's going to shine a massive spotlight on what some of my really elite superstar clients are doing. We always try and find ways to be creative. And I'm just looking at something that I would never normally have lying around. But just to give you an idea, we try and find creative ways to get our message out there.
You talked about buying out the business without much notice. Was that the pivotal moment that significantly impacted on the growth of your organization and your entrepreneurial journey?
Pivotal moments usually come from ideas and usually come from connections. So it's any time that there's been a sort of sea change for us, it's been when we've actually connected with somebody that's given us the next step. What do we need to do next? I'm all about learning from people and sort of picking their brain and asking questions and, offering whatever I can offer to reciprocate that. And then that usually leads to, okay, right, well, actually, yeah, we can move forward a lot quicker than we thought.
Entrepreneurship is never a straightforward path, and it's not a bed of roses, right? I'm sure there've been some setbacks. How do you handle failure, Rhiannon, and what lessons have you learned from failure?
It helps to have a marketer's mindset. So when you are marketing or just generally doing anything to try to grow your business, a lot of it is scientific. A lot of it is an experiment. You're testing a hypothesis. You're trying to figure out what works. You're putting something out that you're not entirely sure is going to be the final thing. And you fail fast. You learn from it. You iterate. You get up. You go again. And you just keep going until things work. So I suppose the key is to just emotionally detach yourself from the outcome of new things that you try and just get out there and try them. And, if you're going to stuff up quickly, learn from it. Oh, that's why that didn't work. Tweak that. Oh, there we go. And, it just gets you leaps and bounds in front of people that are still trying to decide whether or not to do the thing and make it perfect before it launches. That's the biggest lesson, because I am a recovering perfectionist.
You're an extremely busy entrepreneur. What strategies do you use to avoid burnout, Rhiannon?
Boundaries, basically. Actively enforcing boundaries. Burnout, I suppose, is a product of getting overwhelmed, having too much coming at you from too many different directions. And I suppose, so you've got to think about, okay, what is the opposite of that? What would be the opposite situation? It would be a situation where no one needs you for anything. Everyone just knows what they're doing. And obviously that's the perfect business that we all aspire to have. It takes a long time to get anywhere close to that. I would say if somebody asks you something more than once, take the time, although it's a bit of a pain, take the time to document that so that they've just got something that they can refer to. And even better, ask that person, once you've explained it to them, ask them to document it. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Take a moment to just try and document things that happen frequently so that they no longer need your input.
You're a career marketer and you're all about business development. I'm sure lots of people watching will want to know. You talked a lot a moment ago about trial and error. What's working well in terms of growth strategies for your clients right now?
The majority of our customer base are accountants, and obviously they work with many, many different types of business. And what they are doing is a little bit different to what standard firms are doing. They grow their firms, their practices, by demonstrating what it is that they can actually do. And then other people think, oh, that's a little bit different. I'd actually like a bit of that. Stereotypical sort of descriptions that are said with affection, but let's say there are 3 different kinds of accountants. You've got the stereotypical kind of accountant that everybody thinks of, and they are referred to even by other accountants as dinosaurs. They're the once a year people. They are a dying breed, and a lot of them are sort of taking their opportunity to exit the profession as more and more digital means of filing tax are being brought in. Then you've got in the middle, the competent majority, solidly mediocre advice, and sort of labouring under the misapprehension that this constitutes a job well done for their clients. And it's not their fault. I'm not knocking them at all, because you don't know what you've never been taught. You know, they have been taught, do X, Y, Z, and that's doing the gold standard of accountancy for your accountancy clients. They cannot be expected to know what they've never been taught, and what they're doling out is advice that will help businesses to, I don't know, the owners will have maybe a slightly bigger house, a slightly bigger car, slightly nicer lifestyle choices. When you compare what the majority are doing to other accountants who've kind of woken up and realized that if they've got real world expertise and they can apply that to their clients' businesses, they're going to be offering advice that is pretty transformative. And I refer to those accountants sometimes as rockstar accountants, and even accountants take the mickey out of me for that, because it sounds like such an oxymoron. But I can't think of a better way to express just how exceptional what these accountants are doing is for their clients. They're offering sort of business changing, but also life changing advice. They're helping their clients build generational wealth. They're helping their clients build valuable assets to sell, instead of scratching around for a buyer when it's time to actually exit their business. What they're doing is incredibly different, and it's not something that's commonly understood by business owners. It wasn't even something that I necessarily fully understood the distinction, and I was a manager in a company that did marketing for accountants, because it was just words. If you're a salesperson, you're told these are the benefits. Okay, right, well, we can sell those. But until you actually experience that, you don't realize the distinction. And for these accountants, the way that they grow is basically they help their clients grow, and they demonstrate that this is what they're able to do. And then they don't have to do an awful lot more than that to get interest in their business.
It's been a fantastic journey already. If you could do it all over again, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self, Rhiannon?
I would share what I've observed about the difference between people I know who are successful and people who are less successful. And the successful people are the ones that ask questions like, how can I do that? That person over there is doing something. I want to go and ask them, like, how have you done that? Why does that work? Why are you doing that instead of something else? If I was to do that and apply that to my business model, what would it be that I'd need to look out for? And obviously, they be prepared to reciprocate with things if you're going to be picking people's brains like that. But it's those kind of questions that I see successful people asking, rather than why have they got that and not me? It's a totally different sort of mindset. It's how do I achieve that? I suppose that's all I would say, really. She wouldn't listen to anything else anyway.
Brilliant. It's been great to see you, Rhiannon. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey.
All right. Thank you.
Folks, if you'd like to come on and share your story like Rhiannon has just done, we'd love to welcome you on. Just comment, apply below, and we'll be in touch. Until next time, bye for now.